Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, where we review stories that beautiful people like yourselves post on the internet. We got two stories for you today. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for spending my dad's money on a trip with my aunt instead of stepmom? I've read a lot of Am I the a-holes, and so this is my first time making one just for this. A little insight: I, 17 female, lost my mom this year early in April. My parents divorced when I was really young, but I've kept in touch over the years with my dad to ask for financial help with schools, trips, and so forth. Other than that, he told both my mom and me not to keep in touch unless necessary. Ever since my mom's passing, I've been living with my dad. I don't know the details, but my mom and dad never had a friendly relationship, and I can tell my dad really didn't like her, but to me, she was my single working mom, and I really miss her. My dad's new wife, my stepmom, is okay, but she acts a little bit tense around me and tries too hard. I don't think she likes my mom either, since she tells me to stop when I talk about her. I feel like my dad is pushing for us to get close, but I don't see that happening since I barely know either of them well enough. Plus, I'll always only have one mom. Here's where the problem starts. Back when I used to live with my mom, she used to work tons of shifts, get barely any rest, and work her damn hardest for me. I wanted to surprise her with a surprise vacation or a small trip for her to relax, but we couldn't afford it, so I started asking my dad for money every few weeks, saying I needed it for extracurricular courses. When I finally had enough, my mom passed away, and I started living with my dad and stepmom. I still had the trip money left over, so I called my aunt, mom's sister, to come with me for the trip. I don't know how, but my dad found out about the money I've collected and got really angry, but said he'd forgive me if I went on the trip with my stepmom. Obviously I didn't, and left with my aunt when he was away at work. My aunt and I had a blast on our small road trip, stayed at a motel, and basically just toured around in big wide open spaces. As a city child, I had a lot of fun in the countryside. When I came back, Dad was really mad and took away all of my devices and grounded me, calling me an a-hole for not choosing to go with my stepmom and using his money, quote unquote, like a thief. I know what I did with lying about my courses and taking his money was wrong, but was it wrong of me to go with my aunt? She really reminds me of my mom, and I missed her so much. My dad, his wife, and extended family found out and are all calling me a petty thief and a liar. My stepmom has started ignoring me in the house too, and everyone keeps telling me to apologize, but I don't see where I did wrong with going with my aunt who I feel closer to. Not the a-hole because you are a kid and just lost your mother and have been forced to live with people who are practically strangers. I'm appalled that the adults in your life are not giving you some grace for that fact. Listen, it was wrong to lie about the extracurricular stuff. I know that. You know that. But your heart was in the right place. And where else would you go for the money? And most importantly, you're a kid. A kid who wanted to help her mom. So was it a dumb choice? Yes, it was. Does it make you an a-hole? Not at all. Your dad, on the other hand, is a huge and massive a-hole. He clearly neglected you your whole life. Don't keep in touch unless necessary. WTF is that? Even now that you're living with him, that does not make him some hero all of a sudden, since he's basically emotionally neglecting you now. You just lost your mom, and since you're living with him and not someone else, she was likely everything to you. And he is being extremely immature and selfish about this trip and the money. If he was a real parent, he'd understand and try to help you. And this stepmom is no better, ignoring you because you did not go on a trip with her? A grieving kid who just lost her mom? These people are so selfish and can't get their heads out of their own asses to act like a family. I know you're not asking for advice, but is there any way you can stay with your aunt? ESH, your dad sounds a little bit authoritarian, so good luck. But you shouldn't have lied about the reason why you needed the money, and his reasoning probably is that he gave you money for a specific reason, and he can determine what that reason is now since you lied about it. He could have even told you to give the money back. Not the a-hole. While the way you went about getting the money to finance the trip was not exactly kosher, you had every right to decide who to take with you. You chose to take someone you know and love, someone who is a close connection to your mother. The fact that you aren't close with your father and stepmother is their own fault. He was the one who chose to only support you financially and not emotionally, so he has only himself to blame. Is there a way for you to get out of their house? Could you live with your aunt? They're emotionally abusing and isolating you because you didn't cower to their demands, and that is not okay. It could get worse. Reply: thank you. I want to get out too, but I don't think my dad will allow it. Plus, my aunt is struggling financially, so I don't want to be a burden on her. I plan to move out and become independent when I can though. Thought it was about time I make an update post. Although my previous post was judged and the final verdict given was not the a-hole, I recognize my mistake and have since apologized to both dad and stepmom. Right now, I'm working on paying them back through chores and helping around the house, and I'm getting there slowly. The total amount I took from my dad was $150 by the way. I got that money through lying because our city was in a lockdown at the time and I couldn't get any jobs, even if I wanted to, plus allowance was out of the question. Regarding child support, I don't know if my dad was paying it or not, since my mom told me not to talk about financial issues and stuff. Probably not to worry me. But I do know we didn't exactly live the high life. There was barely much to eat, and my mom worked multiple jobs. We lived paycheck to paycheck. My dad is much better off financially. Stepmom has finally stopped ignoring me, but doesn't make much conversation. I have tried asking my dad why his relationship with mom was so bad, and he said that they had a forced marriage and not to talk about her since it would upset stepmom, and she's currently pregnant. To be honest, I'm just really tired and miss my mom. Thanks to the people who gave me advice on what to do and how to move out and be independent. I'll work hard until then. Stay safe everyone. Bye. Thanks for the awards and kind messages too. I am so sorry about your mom. You sound like a really decent, loving person. Feeling guilty over $150 after a lifetime of neglect shows how kind you really are. The fact that your mother died less than a year ago, you lost your home, your whole life was turned upside down, and you're not even allowed to talk about her is completely despicable. Your dad and stepmother are objectively bad people and should be ashamed of themselves. I don't give a shit if they had a forced marriage. That was their problem, not their innocent child's problem. Since you're a minor, I take it that your mother's end-of-life financial stuff was dealt with by your new guardian, dad, correct? Who had control of her assets and property? You're almost 18, and if I were you, I would be taking a very close look to the legal side of what happened after her death. You're also entitled to a pension if you're in Canada, and I think the US. My dad lied when I was 15, and what I got was called a quote-unquote orphan pension back then, in the year 2000. Make sure that they aren't fleecing you. It was about $100 a month back then. If your dad is guilting you over how you spend money that was gifted to you, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was withholding other shit from you as well. I'm so sorry about your mom. I didn't see the original post, but it sure sounds to me that your dad has not been paying as much child support as you were likely legally entitled to. Yeah, it's not great that you got the money by lying, but wow, $150 is such small potatoes. The bigger deal is that he and your stepmom need to understand that relationships are built over time, and 16 or 17 years of avoiding a relationship with you is going to take a while, not to mention effort on their part to change. I'm glad you had this trip with your aunt, and that people who love you and love your mom will continue to be a part of your life. Echoing others, wondering if living with your aunt is a viable option. Echoing others, wondering if living with your aunt is a viable option. Also, where I live, children of divorce are usually entitled to child support through college. Could be worth investigating, not to mention back child support for all the years he'd likely underpaid. Good luck in your future, and it was a wonderful thing you tried to do for your mom, and I'm glad you had a great time with your aunt. Guys, I want to quickly interrupt this video by reminding you to be an a-hole to the like button by inviting them out for coffee, but really just give them a 2-hour pitch for your brand new pyramid scheme. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for making my brother's wedding reception, quote unquote, About me. I, 25 female, am a bridesmaid to the fiancé, 30 female, of my older brother, 31 male. She and I aren't particularly close, but I don't dislike her, and I suspect she asked me just because I'm my brother's sister. I of course agreed, and I was even fine with her putting me in whatever style she wanted, so long as it didn't involve me cutting or dyeing my hair. You know, any major changes. It's not my day. I can suck up an ugly dress and act like it's gorgeous if that makes her happy. The issue, however, is that I'm a wheelchair user. I know that the wedding venue is fine for me, as it's our local church. Totally accessible, so all good. It's the venue being used for the reception that worries me. I asked her where the reception was going to be and if it was accessible for me and had an accessible bathroom. You know, just covering my bases. She didn't get back to me. I figured she was busy, so I left it a week or so before chasing her up again to re-ask. She told me she wasn't sure, so I asked where it was and she told me. I ended up looking up the building and my heart sank. It is an old building, not accessible at all for me, and no bathrooms I could feasibly use either. I told her this and she got very upset, saying my brother had told her that he'd cover the cost and she should just pick whatever she loved and that she loved this. She then went on to suggest that we could just have someone carry me into the building and my family or other bridesmaids could help me use the bathroom when needed, which the very idea mortified me. I'm not about to agree to being carried in and needing help to go to the bathroom. I ended up giving her two options. If she wanted me at the reception, she needed to pick somewhere that was accessible. If she didn't pick somewhere accessible, then I would of course still be her bridesmaid at the wedding, but I would have to skip the reception. She got upset at this, as she felt like everyone, especially my family, would notice my absence and question it, and it would make her look bad. She then told me I was making this about me, which wasn't fair when it was her day. I won't lie, at this point I was enraged. I wanted to tell my brother to let him sort this, but I wasn't about to start shit between them over this, and I pointed out to her that yes, this was her day, and I had no intention of making it about me. However, by marrying my brother, she was joining our family, and she needed to realize that she was not as sensitive as she thought she was, and suggesting that I be carried into the building and aided going to the bathroom was downright insulting. This led to a larger fight, and she told me if my brother didn't already know I was her bridesmaid, that she'd not want me to be it anymore. I called it quits at that point and told her she had my two options and it was up to her which she wanted. Am I the a-hole here? I don't feel like asking for the minimum accessibility is a lot, but maybe I'm too upset by the situation and her suggestions to see it clearly. Not the a-hole, but I don't know why you wouldn't just tell your brother that you're so sorry but you won't be able to attend the reception because the location isn't accessible. Give him the chance not to make this right in case he truly doesn't appreciate how inaccessible the reception location is. Reply: if I sit the reception out, I will be telling him that don't worry. However, she picked out the reception venue herself. It seems so like he has no idea that it's not accessible at all. I wanted to give her a chance to fix it before possibly starting a fight between them, which I really don't want to do. She was completely out of line to ignore your request for information about accessibility, especially given that you are going to be a part of her new family and her bridal party. This is on her. You asked early. She ignored you. She can have the venue she wants and you're not stopping her. But she has no grounds to demand you attend at the venue that doesn't accommodate you. To be honest, I know that you don't want to get your brother involved, but I think it might be a good idea before this gets too out of hand. Don't tear her apart, but just be very gracious. Quote, I'm so excited to be in your wedding, but it looks like the reception is going to be off the table for me due to the venue being inaccessible. End quote. Also, kind of confused why your brother didn't make it abundantly clear to her that each venue needed to be wheelchair accessible when he's lived with you your whole life. I hope he's not often that inconsiderate either. This isn't making her wedding about you. This is you simply declining an invitation that doesn't actually include you. She should have known better, and so should your brother. Maybe I'm stubborn, but the comment of, she told me if my brother didn't already know I was a bridesmaid, that she'd not want me to be anymore. would have made me call it quits and be a guest at the actual wedding and not the reception due to inaccessibility. You're not the a-hole, but I wouldn't force her hand to change it. I would simply say that I cannot go if that's where the reception is, and call it a day. If she chooses to keep it there, then she's choosing for others to notice and ask questions, and she's choosing to exclude you. Hi everyone, here's an update to the situation. As many of you suggested, I checked in with my brother and told him what was going on, and I found out that the reason he left the reception to her was they'd made an arrangement with him covering the ceremony, and she'd cover the reception. We're Catholic, so he cared more about the religious side of the event, while she cared more about the reception/party, as she's not religious, which isn't a bad thing, just different. I showed him the text and explained what had happened. He was pissed off at her suggestion I be carried into the building and assisted in going to the bathroom, and after only a quick search of the venue that she'd picked, he could also see it wouldn't work out for me and promised he'd resolve this and have a talk with her. He was annoyed at me for not bringing this to his attention sooner and told me I shouldn't worry about his feelings over this. The best part of all this, the venue isn't even booked yet. He had assumed she'd picked out somewhere accessible, but has admitted that he should have ensured that and not thought it a given, so he has told me that he'll see it's changed, and if it isn't, they have a bigger problem on their hands. The part that really got to him though was the admission that she didn't want me as her bridesmaid if he didn't already know, and he told me in that case he didn't want me being her bridesmaid and instead wanted me to be his groomsman, which I agreed to. I've yet to hear back from him on what's happening, so I can only wait and see. I'll update further when I know more. Not the a-hole, you're being more than reasonable. That's some ableist BS. Not the a-hole, but I'm not letting your brother off the hook. He agreed to a venue that wasn't accessible for his sister. He's an a-hole too. You have every right to feel uncomfortable and not attend the reception, but it's ridiculous to ask her to change the reception booking mid-planning. Purely on the fact that she had a hissy fit, I'll go with not the a-hole. Edit. Your brother should have known better and had more input in making sure it was accessible in the first place. Sorry for the late update. A lot has been going on behind the scenes, and I've been spending time with my brother in the aftermath, so I have been busy. My brother's now ex-partner refused to reach a compromise on the reception venue despite days of arguments between the two of them, and apparently even demanded to know what mattered more to him, having her dream reception or me being there, and she didn't like his answer to that question at all. Likewise, he was disgusted with her attitude, and apparently this wasn't the only red flag, just the biggest one he'd been unable to overlook. For instance, she kept insisting on getting our mother's engagement ring early, which my brother didn't cave on, thank God. My brother is the oldest child, so was promised our mother's engagement ring that has been in the family for generations. He made it clear to her that she'd get it once they were officially married and got her a cheap placeholder until then, but she'd apparently been kicking up a fuss about it every so often, trying to get him to cave. I was totally unaware of this until he told me. My brother apparently told her that he loved her and he wanted to work through this with her, but they needed serious couples therapy before they'd go ahead with the wedding, even suggesting that I tag along for a family therapy appointment to get to the root of her apparent problem with me, which she didn't take well, to telling him if the wedding was off, they were breaking up, which he told her that was her decision and he wouldn't fight her on it. So yeah, he's been hanging out at mine a lot and I felt incredibly guilty over this shitstorm, but he won't hear any apologies from me on it, saying it's better this came to a head now. He's also wanting to take me and our parents on a family holiday with the money he was going to use for the wedding, so he has something to look forward to. I don't want to say we're well rid of her, as I do think she had some issues that my brother was right they'd have needed to resolve in therapy to become a healthy couple, as she seemed to think that there was some kind of competition for his affection going on. Anyway, that's where things are right now. I just thought I would let you all know, as I know many of you were wondering about the aftermath. You have nothing to feel guilty about. Your problems with his ex showed him what his life would be, and he stood up for himself and you. It's better that it happened now before they got married, because she would have been doing the same things, and you know that if he divorced her after having a child, she would have fought him and made his life miserable. He deserves so much better, and so do you. You should tell your brother that he needs to put his ex on the back burner and go to therapy. Not with her, not with you, but on his own. I sincerely believe that he would benefit from individual therapy. I'm sure he's an amazing partner, brother, son, and friend, but it sounds like he needs to work on boundaries and being able to identify red flags. The ring incident that you mentioned is one of those things that make a lot of us see red flags immediately. He probably has a lot of unresolved issues that he's internalized, and that's why it would be beneficial for him to do therapy on his own. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you could do some sessions with him too. I honestly don't think he should go to therapy with the ex at all. He should call off the wedding entirely and leave her in the past. Definitely not the a-hole. Probably this was what your brother needed to leave the relationship. He dodged the bullet with that horrible person. I bet she's a spoiled child that wants all the attention and is her way or the highway. Don't feel bad, you didn't do anything wrong. You actually helped your brother to have a better future with someone else that will love and appreciate him and his entire family. Best wishes for you and your brother. He will be fine, believe me. Alright guys, that's it for today's stories. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to smash that like button for me and subscribe to our channel to keep listening to these stories. Thank you again for all of your support guys. We will be seeing you in the next one.